Oh, well, as you have just mentioned, that now actually entering my second term as rector of the Open University of Indonesia, and this is my second year as president of ICDE, and I've been working in the open and distance learning field since 28 years ago. I guess that sum up about everything. You mean the one in Asia, right? Yeah, that's the survey that we did back in 2011, and it's about 14 countries in Asia. I think at that time the result of the survey was that people were eager to the uh, movement of open educational resources, and then we see that many people already used some OER, especially the ones downloaded from internet, and people see the benefit, and mostly people perceive that OER really gives them a chance to get access to the best resources available, which otherwise would not been accessible to them without the OER movement. However, I think many Asian lecturers are still like wait and see about sharing their own materials, and uh, some of them said that because the institutions where they work for do not have the a clear policy on that yet, but some also still not sure whether they want to share the materials, whether they're like good enough, to share the materials with others. So there are still some fear in there. I think that what we found, but definitely many people, and I think after the survey now we witness that more and more people are using OER in their teaching activities. Well, I mean, I don't have any information on that because I think that needs to be done through another survey, especially if it's in other countries or other institutions. But in my own university, for example, we encourage our faculty to share the materials, and then um, last year, for example, I made a clear policy about that we would like the faculty to share the materials in our website. Um, yeah, I mean, but the follow up action after that project that was funded by IDRC, for example, the Wawasan Open University now officially launched their website or portal on OER Asia, and that portal now has been adopted by the Asian Association of Open Universities. So it's now the link is from the AAOU website. And I think the OER Asia also holds a annual symposium that started last year, and this year they are going to organize another symposium on OER Asia. And I think Prof. Dano Rajan, the person behind OER Asia, also did some advocacy with different people from different countries, including in Indonesia. And in Indonesia, we just well, officially launched what we call the OER Indonesia OER Consortium, which are initiative of several individuals, but supported by the Higher Education Directorate General in under the Ministry of Education in Indonesia. I think in Asia, as you said, it's still just a hype. And I, based on my conversation with other presidents of open universities in Asia, as well as presidents of many universities in the ICDE membership, there are many people now. It's like wait and see to see where it goes. But I think there are many people who still don't understand. For example, there is a question from one of the president. I'm not going to mention which president or what institution said, well, we've been doing this open university forever. Are we doing the MOOCs or not? So there are still, um, uh, people don't really understand what it is and what the difference between MOOCs and the courses that they have been offering, all these years. But um, I think with the I'm following the MOOCs movement through the MOOCs newsletter, distributed by Stephen Jones, and I see that it's progressing. Even though I think it's still in the pilot project stage, in many institutions. But for myself, in my personal opinion, is that it helps us, people who, like, I've been working in the ODL for a long time, and I think the MOOCs helps us disseminate the information about that learning can indeed be done at a distance and using technology, whether it is like between apple and orange, between ODL, like what we do in the open universities, and MOOCs. But I think it's complementary, and conceptually, it's helping us in disseminating the concept and in making people understand what we have been trying to do all these years. And I think eventually MOOCs will find its own practical implementation that can be accepted maybe in a wider community, and it's not going to be just a hype, but probably will be incorporated into the actual practice of formal education. And I see now, like, several universities have been trying to acknowledge the credits that have been earned through MOOCs, but I have not read any formal evaluation whether they have worked or not yet. Yeah. Um, I mean, I think it will. I think different countries is different, because the context is different, and MOOCs is especially, I think, will be flourishing in countries where ICT infrastructure is very good, and where the people are speaking English, because now MOOCs providers are mostly English universities with English language, and also if we look at it now, I think mostly also provided by conventional face-to-face universities, not by open universities or universities that are doing open and distance learning as their main delivery of their courses. So for Indonesia, for example, I think MOOCs will be very good for informal education, because and I think it's very good to give people access to quality resource of education, especially if it's done by very good or high quality professors. But in Indonesia, for example, there is none. There's no MOOCs yet being offered, like, within the country, and I think only very limited Indonesian people from Indonesia, not from outside Indonesia, also following MOOCs because of the language barriers. And I think unless there are MOOCs offered by in-country universities, I think there is not going to be a lot of benefits for Indonesian people because of the language barrier again, and also because of the ICT infrastructure barrier. But I have to say it's effective because we are doing a lot of teacher training here at our university. As a matter of fact, probably more than 50% of teachers in Indonesia, are doing upgrading, qualification upgrading through our university, and we have been doing it since 1990, and I think we have graduated over 1.2 million teachers through open and distance learning mode. But of course, it's I mean, if you want to call it we doing it in sort of blended method, because teacher are still invited, requested to come to our face-to-face tutorials that we organize throughout the country in the regions. So and based on the evaluation that was done not by us but by independent research teams, teachers who graduated from the open universities, in fact, they are excel in certain aspects of their teaching. For example, in preparing the materials for teaching, in developing or planning the teaching classes, and also in developing the evaluation or assessment questions for the students, and also in Indonesian context. It's sort of it's a must, because with as an archipel of the country, and then we have about 4 million, no, 2.7 million teachers who are not yet having the qualification that is required to become a teachers, but they are already teaching in schools, throughout the country, and there is no way that they can leave their schools to upgrade their qualifications. So for us, there is no choice but doing it through distance education, and that's why in Indonesia it has been a very significant method of teaching, teacher training, especially for practicing teachers. Like for our university, we're not doing pre-service teacher training. We're doing in-service teacher training only, and I think only that because they need to do practical teaching, right? So because they're already teachers, they're already teaching, so they can actually do the practical work in their own schools. That's why it's been very, very effective. I think actually distance learning can be effective for any professional development. Having all the necessary support system are available, in the areas where the students are. For example, I know that there are some open universities which even have medical faculty of medicine, to train doctors, and I know that they're very effective because they have, for example, hospitals that can become the practical places, practical workplaces for them. So as long as there are appropriate and sufficient infrastructures where students can do the necessary practical works for any discipline, then it can be very effective. But in Indonesia, for example, because of the limited physical infrastructure for certain fields of education or professional development, that's why in Indonesia, for example, we don't have yet ODL for, say, engineering or for medical or for medicine. But some universities now already offer distance learning for computer science, for example, because we have so many computer faculty, universities or higher education institutions in the regions which offer computer science, which can become the places for the practical work for the ODL students. So I believe that actually it can be for any field as long as the necessary infrastructure are available. Doesn't have to be belong to the ODL institution, but it should be accessible for the students to use. Yeah, we are using ICT more and more, especially for instructions. We have been using technology, of course, forever, for the back office purposes. But ever since, well, actually, we started, for example, using e-learning platform to provide online tutorials since actually since 1995. Starting with the mailing list based online tutorials, and then we moved to the web based learning management system. And now with the available of open source LMS, we are doing it more and more. And starting this year, actually, all of our courses, which is about 1,000 courses, are all provided with online learning, online tutorials. We call it online tutorials, but it's actually the e-learning version of our courses. And then but we are also using other technologies. For example, we are using the text messages blast. We call it the SMS blast in Indonesia to communicate with students, because handphone penetration is very high in Indonesia, even higher than internet. Internet penetration in Indonesia is only about I don't know, maybe about 10 to 12%, but cell phone penetration in Indonesia is 110%. So we are using more and more handphone or cell phone and mobile phone, as our instructional devices now. Well, as I said, we're using, we broadcast, for example, quizzes, through cell phone, and all of our materials, including our OER and also our online learning, our website, all are accessible through mobile phone. Um, I don't know about widening. I mean, I'm talking about Indonesia. I don't know about widening, but I think they're not doing enough to, uh, you know, to um, to bridge the digital divide. I mean, they're not widening probably, but they're not doing enough to make it, uh, more accessible to the people. I think if we're talking about Asia Pacific, there are many Asian countries which are very advanced, in online learning. And I think, for example, China, China started their open and distance learning with television and radio based. But since, say, 4 years ago, they have been doing a lot in their online learning, internet based. And now, in fact, they have changed their names from, say, radio and television university into open universities. And I think that saves a lot. And I witnessed myself that they are moving toward more and more online learning. I mean, and if China, with its over 3.5 million students, are moving toward online, so you can see the impact. It's huge impact. And I know countries like Korea, for example, it has been basing their on distance learning to online learning, because with Korea, of course, there's no problem with connectivity. And even in countries like Malaysia and Thailand, they are now very advanced as well in online learning. India, of course, India is a mix of, the digital divide is still big, but the smartest people in IT also in India. So they are also, I think, moving toward online learning very much so. And then India has over 3 million distance learners as well. So with China and India alone, I think you can see the leap, in online learning in Asia. And in Indonesia, I see in the next 5 years it will also be, increasing very significantly, because now the private sectors are going into putting infrastructure of IT in Indonesia. And I think once it's there, people will catch up very, very quickly, because they are already familiar with the online gaming, with the online entertainment. And now the government is pushing e-government for every aspect of the governance. So I think when people are already familiar with the device, already familiar with the platform, and jumping into learning is just a step away. And I believe in within like 5 to 10 years from now, I think the online learners in Indonesia will be increasing very significantly. Yeah, well, I just have a wish, I guess, that we have more content in local languages, because I think now in Asia, the problem is first infrastructure, second is language, because we have many countries where people do not speak English, do not speak Chinese. I mean, Chinese are a lot, but there are many people who do not speak Chinese, and many people still using, like, a very local. Um, alphabet, And I just wish that we have more localization, not only in content but also in software. I know, IDRC has been helping many countries in doing so, and I hope that it will continue supporting such activities in Asia, because only then we can really reach and give the benefit of this to everybody in Asia. But thank you for interviewing me.